Well, tell us, Matt, kind of your background and how you got into this and became this business leader.
So let me work backwards, right? So
Okay.
what I do now is I'm an IT and business strategist. And what that is it's combining both of those to help business owners actually do just what you guys said, which is to maximize their technology, to use it in the most productive, like streamlined way and get the most value out of it so that they can reach their business goals. So it's like looking at putting those together and saying, are they in alignment? If your business goals for the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years are to reach certain levels and to implement certain solutions, but your technology isn't ready, isn't positioned to actually match those business goals, you're just going to kind of spin your wheels. It's not going to happen, and that's common, right? So and there's always budget involved, and so there's always a spend involved and return on investment analysis. That's where everything kind of comes together. And so that's the space that I live in, but it's also the space that we start every conversation with everybody that we meet. So, how did I get to this point? Well, and so my company, aside from doing that, we provide all the typical services. We do cloud, we do managed services, which is basically everything you can think of when it comes to the day-to-day support for an organization, antivirus, and we do all the typical tools and services that you would think an IT service provider provides. But again, it all starts with having those business conversations, because otherwise you have no idea what problems you're solving. So that's where we are and who we are today, and who I am today. I took a really odd route to get here. I got into IT back in the very late 90s. Prior to that, I'll just tell you quickly, I grew up very, very poor, living on government subsidies. And, when I was 12, I had lost my father. And so there was one of those kind of unfortunately typical stories that you hear from self-made entrepreneurs, where they had this rocky road of things in life that kind of shaped them and molded them. And what that does over time is it gives you a certain view and a certain perspective on the world, but also business. And so, through the years, I did a lot of different things, but I got into IT in the late 90s, climbed the corporate ladder, working for some very large companies in New York City, and did all that traditional stuff. And that gave me a really good perspective on how to run business, how CEOs and CFOs think in billion-dollar companies, which I worked for. And then over time, I found out that I had an entrepreneurial spirit, and that I actually didn't want to be in this cage of like corporate, and I wanted to go do my own thing. And so there's a long story in there, several hours, but I ended up doing my own thing and starting out with one customer and building it just one at a time from my basement with no employees, just me doing all the work. And over the years, through mergers, acquisitions, and just organic sales, I built it up to what it is today, which is a multi-million-dollar company. Done a couple of mergers and acquisitions over the past few years. Ultimately ended up buying all the partners out, so I'm the only owner of the company today. And what happens over all that time is you make so many mistakes and you fall on your face so many times that those lessons become the most valuable asset that you have, which is what I often share even with my clients, my IT clients. We have these business conversations, but I oftentimes find out or it ends up developing where people end up asking me all these questions about their business, about finance, about marketing and sales, because they see that I have a general knowledge of all of these things. It's not that I'm smarter than anybody else. I've just been doing it for so long, and I've made so many mistakes that I kind of see a clearer path. And so that has nothing to do with the IT side of things, but it's a real cool value add that comes into every relationship that I have with every client that I have. And it's a pretty broad summary, but there's a book in there somewhere.